Silicon Valley, California, home to the world's most influential tech moguls, where innovation and ambition drive the elite to heights of unimaginable wealth. Among them was Victor Hayes, a name synonymous with success, power, and an almost mythical persona in the tech world. As the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the world, Hayes had built his empire from the ground up, his genius and vision propelling him into the ranks of the ultra-wealthy. He was admired, respected, and adored by the media, the public, and even his own employees. But beneath his polished exterior, Victor had a secret, a double life he kept hidden from the world for over 5 years. His wife, Isabella Hayes, was the picture of grace and elegance, an accomplished philanthropist, the perfect partner to Victor's public image. They had 2 children, lived in an extravagant mansion, and their social appearances were the epitome of perfection. But behind closed doors, Victor was hiding a passion that had quietly simmered for years, his affair with his assistant, Chloe Davis. Chloe, young, sharp, and fiercely intelligent, had worked for Victor since the early days of his company's success. She was the one who kept the engine running smoothly, managing schedules, emails, and countless details that made the company tick. She was loyal, dedicated, and in Victor's eyes, she was so much more than just an assistant. Over time, their professional relationship had evolved into something more, a secret romance they shared when the world wasn't looking. Victor and Chloe's affair began innocently enough. A late night at the office turned into shared drinks, a conversation about life, and before long, it became clear that their connection was deeper than either of them had expected. They tried to keep their relationship professional, but the attraction was undeniable. Soon, stolen moments, whispered conversations, and stolen kisses led to a full-fledged affair. At first, Victor had been cautious, but the power and allure of their connection only grew. As time went on, he found himself more and more drawn to Chloe. She was everything Isabella wasn't: spontaneous, daring, and completely uninhibited. Their connection was electric, and while Victor's wife remained unaware of his growing distance from her, Chloe found herself falling deeper for the man who had always been in control. The affair was thrilling, dangerous, and intoxicating, but it was also complicated. The stakes were high. If anyone found out, it would ruin not only his marriage but his empire. So, they kept their relationship under wraps, weaving a complex web of lies and deception to keep the truth hidden. For years, Victor provided Chloe with a separate mansion, one far from the prying eyes of his family and the media. He had a key to it, but Isabella never did. The house was a sanctuary, a private world where they could be together without fear of being caught. Victor would sometimes disappear for hours, telling Isabella he was working late or traveling for business, while he was actually with Chloe. He would buy her extravagant gifts, spoil her with luxury, and take her on weekend getaways to remote locations. But in public, he remained the devoted husband, always by Isabella's side, attending charity galas, family events, and fundraisers. To the world, Victor Hayes was the perfect husband, father, and businessman. But the lies, the secrets, and the guilt slowly started to eat away at Victor. The weight of his actions, the constant deception, began to take its toll. He knew he was living a double life, but he convinced himself that it was worth it. Chloe understood, and she, too, kept the secret. She was content with the arrangement, even as her feelings for Victor deepened. But deep down, both of them knew that this couldn't last forever. Years passed, and the tension of Victor's double life began to grow. The affair with Chloe had been thrilling at first, secretive, passionate, and utterly forbidden, but as time wore on, Victor felt the weight of the lies pressing down on him. The guilt gnawed at him, especially as he watched Isabella grow more distant. She had always been the perfect wife, supportive, beautiful, and intelligent. But the more he engaged in his hidden relationship, the more he began to notice the cracks in his marriage. Isabella, though never suspecting the affair, began to notice the subtle changes in Victor. He was more distracted, less attentive. Their intimate moments had dwindled, and the late nights at work became a regular excuse. He was tired, distant, and his once intense passion for their marriage seemed to fade. Isabella, ever the dedicated partner, began to feel like a stranger in her own home. She attributed it to the pressures of his job, the demands of running a global tech empire. But deep down, she knew something was missing. She just didn't know what. Meanwhile, Chloe, living in her mansion far from the eyes of the public, began to grow restless. Their once thriving affair now felt like a secret that was beginning to lose its allure. She had everything she could have wanted: luxury, attention, the thrill of being with a powerful man. But she realized she had become more than just his mistress. She was in love with him. The romanticized version of their secret life no longer satisfied her. She wanted more. She wanted him to choose her, not just in private, but in the light of day. She wanted him to leave Isabella, to give her the life she had dreamed of, one where they didn't have to hide their love. Victor, however, remained reluctant. He had built a life with Isabella. The media, his colleagues, and the public saw him as a family man, a symbol of success and stability. He couldn't bear the thought of throwing all of that away for a relationship that would inevitably come under scrutiny. The thought of losing everything, the empire, his reputation, his position, was terrifying. He wasn't ready to make that leap. Chloe, though, was becoming more vocal about her desire for a future together, demanding that he choose between her and his marriage. The strain began to show. Chloe's impatience grew, and Victor found himself cornered, caught between the two women who had a claim on his heart, even if either of them fully knew the extent of the other's importance in his life. It was a game of balance, maintaining the love and trust of Isabella while satisfying the growing needs of Chloe. Victor knew that sooner or later, something would have to give. Then it happened. The perfect storm. During a high-profile event at the tech company's headquarters, where Victor was set to give a keynote address, Chloe showed up unexpectedly. She had been invited by a mutual acquaintance but had made sure to sit near the front, hoping to catch Victor's eye. The entire night had been carefully orchestrated. Victor had made sure to sit next to Isabella and maintain the perfect public image of a loving husband. But Chloe's presence in the room threw everything off. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and for a moment, everything stopped. Isabella, noticing the intense exchange, turned to Victor. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity and suspicion. Victor froze, panic coursing through him. His mind raced. He had always been careful, keeping Chloe at a distance from public events like this. But now she was in the same room, too close for comfort. I don't know," he stammered, his mind scrambling for an explanation. "She's just someone from work. I'll introduce you later." But Isabella wasn't convinced. Her gaze stayed locked on Chloe as the night wore on, and Victor could see the shift in her demeanor. She wasn't buying his lie. The cracks in their marriage, which had been hidden for so long, were starting to show. And as the evening progressed, Isabella's suspicion grew. Her sharp intuition told her there was something off about this woman, and she was determined to find out what it was. The night ended with a strained silence between the couple. Victor had done his best to mask his guilt, but Isabella's probing questions lingered in the air. She knew something was wrong, and she wasn't going to let it slide. Meanwhile, Chloe left the event feeling both triumphant and frustrated. She had made her presence known, but it hadn't been enough to make Victor choose her. The entire night had been a show, one in which she was forced to play a supporting role in the background, while Isabella held the starring role in Victor's life. Chloe's heart ached, but she wasn't about to let it go. She had been patient for too long, and now, she was ready to take things to the next level. The days following the event were tense, and the distance between Victor and Isabella became more noticeable. Isabella had become distant, almost cold, her suspicions lingering. Victor's every word seemed to falter, as though the weight of the secret had finally begun to crush him. His professional life was as successful as ever, but his personal life was unraveling at a speed he couldn't control. His marriage was on the rocks, and his affair with Chloe was no longer a hidden pleasure, it was a ticking time bomb. Isabella, ever the poised and intelligent woman, was not one to let things slide. She could feel the shift in their relationship, and after the gala, she had decided she would confront Victor. No more evasions, no more pretending everything was fine. She couldn't keep ignoring the cold, calculating look in Victor's eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. She needed answers. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Victor returned home to find Isabella sitting in their living room, her expression calm but her eyes burning with determination. The moment he stepped through the door, she didn't wait for a greeting. "We need to talk," Isabella said, her voice firm. Victor's heart skipped a beat, and the guilt that had been gnawing at him for so long surged through him. He knew this conversation was coming, but he had no idea how to face her, how to explain the years of lies that had built a chasm between them. "I know something is going on," Isabella continued, her eyes never leaving his. "I saw the way you looked at her. The woman at the event. Her name is Chloe, isn't it?" Victor stood frozen, his mouth dry. How could he explain to the woman he had loved and betrayed that his heart had been split between two lives? How could he tell her about the affair, the lies, the mansion, the stolen moments? It all felt too overwhelming. Victor began, but Isabella raised her hand to stop him. "Don't lie to me, Victor," she said quietly. "I know. I've known for a while, but I didn't want to believe it. But now, I can't ignore it anymore." Her words were like a slap, cutting through the tension. The silence that followed was deafening. Victor looked down, unable to meet her gaze. He had lived a lie for so long, and now, everything was crashing down in front of him. "Why?" Isabella's voice cracked. "Why did you do this to me? To us?" Victor's mind was a whirl of confusion and guilt. He had never intended for it to get this far. Chloe had been a temptation, an escape from the pressure of his world. But that was no excuse for what he had done. He had betrayed the one person who had always stood by him. "I don't have an answer, Isabella," he said softly, his voice laced with regret. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. But I made a mistake, a huge one." Isabella stood up, her eyes brimming with tears. "A mistake? You've been lying to me for years, Victor. I deserve more than that. I deserve someone who is honest, someone who doesn't keep secrets from me." The weight of her words hit Victor like a hammer. He could feel his empire slipping away. He had already lost his family, his wife, and the love they had shared. What had it all been for? A brief affair, a stolen love that had led to nothing but pain and destruction. Meanwhile, Chloe had been waiting for Victor's decision. She had grown impatient. Her heart had been set on a future with him, one where they didn't have to hide in the shadows. She had longed for the moment when he would choose her, when he would leave his marriage behind and begin a new life. But as the days passed, she realized Victor wasn't going to leave Isabella. His guilt, his fear of losing everything, had him paralyzed. Chloe, feeling increasingly desperate, did what she had promised herself she would never do. She confronted Isabella. The confrontation took place in a quiet cafe just a few blocks from their home. Isabella had agreed to meet her after hearing the news from mutual friends about Chloe's attempt to contact Victor. She was angry, hurt, but she needed answers. When Chloe arrived, there was no pretension, no apologies, just raw emotion. "I'm not here to beg for forgiveness, Isabella," Chloe said, her voice calm but firm. "I just want you to understand that I loved him. And I still do. I never meant to destroy your life, but I couldn't keep pretending either." Isabella looked at Chloe, her eyes filled with disbelief. "You really think this was love?" she asked, her voice rising. "You think Victor's love was worth all the lies? All the damage you've done?" Chloe paused. There was a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "I don't know what you want me to say. I didn't ask for this to happen. But I can't change what I feel. I was in love with him." Isabella stood up abruptly. "You both made your choices. But now, we're both dealing with the consequences of those choices." Chloe's heart sank as Isabella walked away. She had hoped for some kind of resolution, some kind of understanding, but she realized too late that it was all too much. The affair, the lies, the damage, it had gone too far. Neither of them could come out of this unscathed. That night, as Victor sat alone in his office, looking out over the city, he realized the true cost of his actions. His empire had been built on lies. His career, his family, his reputation, they were all crumbling. The affair with Chloe had been a fantasy, an escape. But the reality was harsh. There was no happy ending, no way to undo the damage he had caused. Victor's resignation from his company came soon after, as the media uncovered the full extent of his affair. His marriage to Isabella was officially over, and the scandal surrounding his double life followed him everywhere. The world saw him for what he truly was, a man who had risked everything for a fleeting affair. Chloe, too, found herself alone, her career in shambles, her reputation in tatters. She had never anticipated that her love for Victor would cost her so much. What began as an affair born of excitement and passion had ended in a bitter, public fallout. Victor and Chloe's story is a painful reminder of the consequences of betrayal. Secrets, lies, and affairs might seem like escapes, but they come at a high cost. In the end, living an authentic life, one built on trust, honesty, and integrity, is the only way to truly find peace. If you've ever been caught in a web of lies, know that the truth will always come to light, and the consequences are far-reaching. Trust is the foundation of all relationships. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But the good news is, you have the power to rebuild your life. It starts with honesty, even when it's difficult, and the courage to move forward.